11वटा यस्तै इभेन्ट पछिको यो 12औं इभेन्टमा आज हामीसँग 3टा प्रेजेन्टेसन टक्सहरू छ हैन। एउटा उज्जवलबाट छ, एउटा मबाट अनि एउटा केसनजीबाट छ। अब सुरु गरौँ त्यसो भए। ल उज्जवल।
Hello everybody. This is the topic of my presentation, image manipulation library for PHP. Let's start with my introduction. I am Ujjwal Ojha, study BSc CSIT, second semester. I work at Revert Technologies as a web application developer. These are the topics that I am going to discuss. Available tools in PHP for image manipulation, image introduction, filters, transformations, integration between Imagine and ZenFramework 2, and integration between Imagine and Symfony 2. These are the most popular tools available in PHP for image manipulation. The most popular one is GD, which is available in PHP installation by default. So this is the most popular one. And there are other tools like Imagic and Gmagic. They are not as popular as GD, but they are more performant than GD. If you use GD in production, you should probably switch to Imagic and Gmagic because they are more performant in image manipulation for PHP. But there are some problems with these available tools. The first problem is they are hard to test because they cannot be easily be mocked. So it is really difficult to write unit tests for these available tools. And second is they are inconsistent. These different tools have different API. So you have to write different code for different these GD, Imagic and Gmagic, and they are really hard to do image manipulation. It's not easy in PHP to do image manipulation. It's really difficult. So this is how we do image resizing in GD. What a crap code. It's really hard to test because it's not really object oriented. We cannot mock any objects here. And just for image resizing, we need to write 6 lines of code, which is not just. This is how you do image resizing in PHP with Imagic. This is a lot better than the previous one. It is more object oriented. Still, the API of Imagic and these drivers are not consistent. It's really hard to test because the image object, we cannot easily mock those objects. So it's really difficult to write tests. Now comes Imagine. So Imagine is an image manipulation library for PHP. It is basically a wrapper for this GD, Imagine and Imagic. So it contains same API for GD, Imagic and Gmagic because they implement the same interfaces. And so it's really easy to test the code written in Imagine, and it's really easy to write image manipulation in Imagine. It has a very good, simple and easy to understand and intuitive API. Before Imagine, it was really difficult to write image manipulation, to do image manipulation in PHP. The available tools were very difficult, it was not so easy, to write tests. But since Imagine has come, Imagine has taken image manipulation in PHP to the next level. It contains fully object-oriented code 5.3, like late static binding namespaces. So, and it's really easy to test this by mocking interfaces. This is how GD is implemented in Imagine. You can see that this is a GD driver, GD implementation in Imagine, which implements Imagine interface. As I said, Imagine is basically a wrapper around GD, Imagic and Gmagic. So all these drivers implement the same interface. In this example, in GD implementation, it implements imagine interface, and this is for imagine. Here, the imagine implementation also implements imagine interface, and the Gmagic driver it also implements imagine interface. So it is really easy to write code which works with GD as well as Gmagic as well as Imagic. You may have situation where you have GD installed in your development environment and Imagic or Gmagic in your production environment. So that's not really a problem when you are using Imagic. This is how you do image resizing in PHP with GD. In the first line, we have instantiated the GD driver. Second line we have used that imagine instance to create a new instance of an image. In third line we have created a box of certain width and a height, and we have resized that image to that box, and in the last line we have saved that image to a path. This is almost everything is similar in Imagic. As you can see, the only difference is the driver instantiation between GD and Imagic. Other than that, everything is same, and everything is quite similar in Imagic as well. So it is really easy to write code which works with GD as well as Imagic as well as Gmagic. These are some of the operations that can be performed in Imagine. I have just listed out a few here. Resize, rotate, crop, copy, paste, apply marks, and a lot of operations are there. There is a concept in Imagine called filter. Filter is a collection of manipulations, calculations, and other operations that can be applied to an image. Which basically means that filter is a place in where you can define how or what you want to do with an image. You may perform mathematical calculations like calculating coordinates or doing like border. You may want to sketch a box there. This is a place where you define all those things. This is filter implementation. Filter is any class in Imagine that implements filter interface. You can see here my filter implements filter interface, and the filter interface only defines one method, that is apply, which receives image as its sole argument. So within that apply method, this is where you define all your image manipulation code. This is where you define what you want to do with an image. This helps to write highly object-oriented code. Transformation. In Imagine there is a topic called transformation. Transformation is a way to delay image processing. It is a queue of filters. So you can attach different filters to a transformation and execute all those filters when you are ready. So let me illustrate that with an example. First, let's discuss the transformation structure. This is the implementation of, this is our transformation looks like. As I said, transformation is a special implementation of a filter. So it implements filter interface. That's why it contains filter apply method. And the other thing is it contains add method. I said that transformation is just a queue of filters. So you can call the add method and attach different filters at different priority. So when the apply method is called here, filters with the highest priority are called first from highest to lowest. This is an example of using a transformation. At the first line I have instantiated the transformation class, and after that I have attached three filters. One with priority of -10, second with priority of 10, and third with the default priority of 0. So until this point nothing has actually happened. After you call the apply method with an instance of image object, this is where the actual image manipulation happens. This is where at first the border filter is applied, after that the rotate filter is applied, and after that the crop filter is applied. So transformation is special implementation of a filter. It is a queue of filters. It is a way of lazily applying filters. So imagine and Zen framework to have crossed their paths. There is a module called STIMG module. It's created by Revert Technologies. This module is an integration between Imagine and Zen framework. So let's discuss the benefits of this module. So you can easily configure the modules to work together. You can easily integrate the module because that module acts as a glue between Zen framework 2 and Imagine. You can easily use the filters in templates, and it also offers automated caching of manipulated images. This is how you can configure a filter. In this example, I have created a filter service called MyThumbnail. Basically what it does is it creates a thumbnail of an image of size 100 by 100 and outputs it in format of PNG. After you have configured the filter, this is how you use the filter in a view template. This STIMG or my.png myThumbnail. You can see the myThumbnail there. I have configured the myThumbnail to generate a thumbnail. So when this view helper is called in Zen framework 2, it automatically provides the URL of that image, and when the next time the image is accessed, it automatically caches the image in the web root. So there is no need to manipulate the same image the same way because it automatically caches. So Apache can solve the manipulated images directly from the file system. So it's basic integration between Imagine and Symfony 2. This LibImagine bundle is a Symfony 2 bundle which acts as a glue between Imagine and Symfony 2. This is how you configure Imagine in Symfony 2. You have created a resolver to resolve images, and I have created a filter called MyThumb, which basically creates a thumbnail of size 120 by 990 and outputs in a quality of 75. After you have configured the filter, this is how you use the filter in Quick templates and PHP templates. It is quite similar to the one I have showed before in Zen framework 2. It also create a cache in the web root, so the next time there is no need for PHP to manipulate the images, and Apache can solve the images directly from the file system. Thank you everybody. Anybody has any questions regarding the usage of Imagine?
Do you have anything like that would integrate with CDN? Because I don't think anyone would do all this image processing on their production servers. So would it be a better idea to like connect it to the CDN?
CDN, yes, the LibImagine bundle supports that. To cache images in Amazon CDN, yes, that supports. You can watch that. You can see the documentation of LibImagine bundle. It supports that. And other questions? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ujjwal. Now it's my turn to present. So I'll be presenting on RESTful web architecture. Okay. everyone. I'm Shrithas Patrai, and I'm going to present on RESTful web architecture. So, first of all, what's the situation? Why am I presenting this, and like, what's the motive behind this presentation, and what does RESTful web architecture solve? So the first thing, the situation is that websites have become apps. Like, I don't see any more like websites popping up. Everything that is not a blog or a news site has become an app. Facebook is an app, Twitter is an app, everything else is an app. And multitude of platforms to develop for. Even if you are using web, you'll have to develop for mobile, and even that you'll have to develop for iOS, Android, and everything else. So even if you are using a web, you'll have to develop for minimum of 3-4 platforms. That is a problem. And accessible data driven. Everything that we do these days is driven by data. Every single app, we just the client interacts with the server, and data is just sent from the client server and so forth. And lots of external service integrations. Right now, even if you make a simple website, you'll have to integrate it with Facebook, Twitter, and other APIs, such as social logins and all. Like, that is the current situation. And what are the problems? The problem is that if we build a website, then we normally tend to develop a different system for the app. Such as like we deploy a website and we just tend to create another server with a completely different architecture, and like it is just next point is reinventing the wheel. We're just doing the same thing over and over again, and even in the same architectural processes, we're just looking over new ways to do things when good enough things are already available. And also lack of well thought architecture. We just tend to develop stuff, begin in a PHP file and start writing code without even thinking. That is a huge problem. And also HTTP over HTTP. We've been seeing some people using like HTTP to develop something like HTTP over HTTP. So that like, much like SOAP and RPC, those things. So like before moving forward, I'd like to give a quick revision on HTTP. So in HTTP there is a client and a server. A client sends something like this, get/index.html http/1.1 and post. That get is a method, that index.html is a path, HTTP that is a version, and below that those are headers. Again, that is what the server sends to the client. Such as HTTP, those are the headers. 200 is a status code of OK, and below that those are content of the body of the HTTP file. So it's like HTTP is made up of methods called get, add, put, delete. Those are the HTTP methods. When we ask for a file, we are asking the server get file name. That is what the server sends us. Add, we are asking for the size, the information about the path or file. Post, put, delete, they are self-explanatory, I guess. And also path. These are the address to the resource. Like if you just go to index.html, that is the path of a resource that we are expecting. The next is a header, such as a postexample.com. There are multitude of headers that I showed before. And status code. 200 OK, 4 not found. We are pretty much familiar, I guess. And the body. So now, for this presentation, I'll show you a simple example app that will explain a lot in process. So what I made is yet another to-do app. It's like Hello World for web programming. Everyone makes to-do app when they begin. And I probably let me just show the app first. So this is yet another to-do app. So it's nothing, just okay. So this is how the app looks like. It's a simple app. You just go to your page, creating your view, and if you can mark it as done. So this is what I was showing. So the resource. In web, we talk about the resource. The resource is a to-do list items in this presentation, in this app. The resource is a to-do list database. This is the resource of the to-do list app, the single entity of a to-do list. So next, the interface. So how this app works is like the methods map to the HTTP database. We have a simple CRUD app there. Create, I've used put, read, I've used get, update, push, put, post, patch, and delete for delete. So the URIs point to a specific resource. So let me just show you again. Okay, such as like the slash to do. Okay, the slash to do points to all the collections of the to do items, and the single slash 4 points to a single entity that I've shown before. So you are going to specific slash to do collection of to-dos and slash to do slash ID a specific to-do. The representation of the resource. As we have already seen that the resource, the to-do list resides in the database. But the representation, this HTML file that we just saw, that is just a representation of the resource that is stored in the server and will pass it to the user via web browser. And also, I've done something for a JSON. If we are making apps, we'll probably be using JSON. So, like the thing is, the resource is the same, but only the representations are different. Okay, let me just demonstrate that. So, if we just put /.json at the back of the presentation, it would work. Okay, my keyboard's not working right now, sorry. So let me continue from there. Okay, so the statelessness, I'll talk something about the statelessness of the event. HTTP is a stateless protocol. Every request is self-contained. The browser does not know where you are, in which previous page you were, what is the state of the application in your web browser. It doesn't know. Every request is self-contained. All it does is it sends the information such as cookies. For every request, your browser sends a cookie, and that is how it identifies you. That is how it knows who you are, what you are doing. So that is the same thing happened on the previous app that we just saw. Everything was stateless there. Like every request that we send, only the headers identify what we are planning to do. So REST, what really is REST? REST as a uniform interface. Like we saw this before, the URI representation was /to-do /1. That thing is an interface that which we can identify with, and I've implemented. Okay, it's much like okay, I've used Laravel for this, and suppose like for get I'm doing the show index, for put I'm doing the create to, for delete I'm doing such like I'm using HTTP headers and HTTP methods to identify the things, the actions that people perform on the to-do list. So that was uniform interface. And statelessness. Like I've already told you, HTTP is a stateless protocol. Every request is self-contained and cacheable. And the server and the client should identify if the thing is cacheable or not. They should send a cache header and tell that you should cache this or the cache has expired. That is what cacheable is. And client server, like it's pretty obvious. Like you connect to a client, you connect to a server, that's the thing. And layered system. This is one of the things. Like you should expect there to be layers between the client and the server, and like yet it should work. Like whatever the client send and it is processed via proxies and gateways, it should work. That is what the system expects. And code on demand. This is an optional thing. Like the client can manipulate the browser via JavaScript and Java applets, stuff like that. That is a code on demand. So if these 6 constants are met, then the system is called a RESTful system. Why REST? Like, why can't we do something else? Why not use soap? Never use soap for doing your stuff. And why your next project should be RESTful? It is a time-tested architecture. TP is a RESTful protocol. Like the simple static websites, they are all RESTful. Every single directory, every single file is taken as a resource. It is a time-tested architecture, and you should probably use it. And the best thing is, it is both machine and human friendly. You can integrate with apps that communicate via the backend, and you can just like what I just did. Like I can just put my URLs myself and just communicate with the app and do stuff. And it is made for the web. When you are using web as a transport protocol, HTTP as a transport protocol, it is best to use a RESTful API for things. Like it may not be the one size fits all, but in most of the cases, it is a one size fits all. So that's it. Thank you.